Looking to get started in PE? Check out the masculinehealthsolutions.com ebook available now, titled How to Get a Bigger Penis. All right, so all you guys looking to make gains in the male enhancement, penis enlargement, penis enhancement realm, this book is for you. And if you're a beginner, this is just the book you may have been looking for. So be sure to check it out at masculinehealthsolutions.com. The link is in the description below. Again, the book is titled How to Make Your Penis Bigger, and it will offer you all the knowledge and know-how that you need to get started on your PE journey. All right, without any further ado, let's jump on in. What is going on, guys? Welcome to another episode of the Masculine Health Solutions Podcast. I hope you guys are doing fantastic. I hope you guys are doing good. And I hope, you guys can take a whole lot out of today's episode, where I'm joined by Marc Nelson, who's going to be discussing a little bit more about the scientific body types and how it kind of affects us and how to really approach, let's say, if you're lacking in a certain, let's say you're lacking in muscular development or lacking in the fact that you have a little bit too much fat. He's going to go over that, kind of shed some light, talk about his story. So before, we jump in, Marc, how are you, sir? And tell us a little bit about your story.
Doing well. How are you doing, CJ?
Doing fantastic, man.
My story started when I was around 8 years old, and I was out on the soccer field playing shirts off soccer. I was actually a really good soccer player when I was young. I was on a state championship team, and I was a star member of that team, but I was only 8, and everyone was young. So your body hadn't started to, really grow and mature yet. So I noticed that my body was different than most of my peers, where their body looked like the standard scientific human body anatomy book by type 1 that you find in any standard scientific human body anatomy book. My body did not look like that. I was missing muscle everywhere where there should be muscle and muscle mass. And instead of that, I had fat. And I wasn't a fat kid, I was a skinny kid. So it didn't really make any sense because the term skinny fat didn't exist at the time, or any of the sub definitions of skinny fat, which is cellulite, thin fat, loose skin, saggy skin, crepey skin, or normal weight obesity. None of those terms, with the exception of cellulite, really existed at the time. So when I would go in and see my doctor for my annual checkup, I was well within my safe BMI weight range, and that's all that they cared about. So I was normal. And when I would ask them about why I had fat all over my body where there should be muscle, nobody cared, because I was young and your body will grow, don't worry about it. Yeah. When I got to age 10 and I asked my mom again, hey, what's up with all this fat all over my body? My father is an obese man, and obesity is common in our family. So it's just like, it's no big deal. Don't worry about it. And that's the response I got all the way up through my teens into my 20s. Nobody cared. So long as I was within my safe BMI weight range, everything was good. The problem is if you're missing muscle mass where there should be muscle mass, and in place of that muscle mass is fat or skinny fat in any form, then you are at a great disadvantage. And anyone who's seen an athlete's body knows this for a fact. It's why less than 1% of the population is a professional athlete. And all that there are athletes who have a full-on body type 1. They have all the muscle and muscle mass, and yet they still are not good enough to be a pro athlete, because it takes more than just muscle and muscle mass to be a pro athlete. It takes skill and talent, yada, yada. I didn't have any muscle or muscle mass. I actually had talent and skill, but I didn't have any muscle or muscle mass. Mm-hmm. So as the years passed, it made things very difficult. I was an easy target for bullying because I was so weak and skinny. And so I was bullied relentlessly every day, at home, by my family, on the way to school, at school, on the way back from school, at home again, because I was so skinny and weak, because I was missing muscle. So the 4 body types grew out of that. I really began my journey towards the end of college, and it took 20 years to really figure it out, because there is no body type science until 2003 when I really started this. And it actually started prior, but I officially began the research in 2003. And there was no body type science. There were no scientific body types. Any of the body types that people know about, the somatotypes, 3 body types, endomorph, ectomorph, mesomorph, are completely 100% unscientific. They're arbitrary, subjective shapes that were debunked long ago, yet folks still refer to those body types, or the hormone body types, or the kibbe, or triangle, or 10. Any of those body types, they're all unscientific body types. So I'll sort of pause there. Am I making sense here?
Yeah. And I mean, the thing is, I was brought up to believe, well, actually, it's funny you mentioned BMI, and according to my BMI, I'm obese, right? So, which is why I kind of like, well, I don't think so, man. I got a lot of muscle mass. So I'm like, this doesn't add up. But you're right. It's kind of like, it was, as far as BMI and the way that we kind of categorize body types, I feel like that system probably could be reworked. So talk to us a little bit about how you decided to make, your system, and how you divide the different body types that you obviously come to the conclusion of, like, hey, these are the 4 that exist.
So you are right. The BMI is most certainly not accurate. And that is one of the reasons why. So if we think about someone like The Rock, who's all muscle, right? And that dude has no fat on his body whatsoever. But if you were to run his BMI, he very most likely is obese, in the overweight or obese category, which is nonsense. Mm-hmm. And that's just one more way where obesity is, the BMI is not accurate. So let me go through the current mainstream science and doctors' body type standards so that everyone understands that. And then we'll talk about how those are inaccurate. And then I'll get into the 4 body types so that we can sort of follow that, if that's cool.
Yep.
So the mainstream science and medical doctors' body type standard is the Standard Scientific Human Body Anatomy Book, Body Type 1, found in any scientifically approved human body anatomy book. And it's the image that everyone can see in their mind's eye, with the body fully developed and all the muscle mass fully developed. When you go in and see your doctor, that is the image that they have on their clipboard, that they have on the picture on their wall, yada yada, that they are using to rate you in terms of whether you are normal or not, whether you are healthy and normal.
Yeah.
So that is standard number 1. Standard number 2 is the body mass index, which has been around since the 1800s, but wasn't officially recognized as the standard until 1985. And that standard is not accurate, because any part of the human body can be underdeveloped to whatever degree. And skinny fat is a very real thing. And it is not taken into account with the BMI. So that is standard number 2. Standard number 3 is the basal metabolic rate, which is the BMR.
BMR.
It's the number of calories that your body requires daily just to function. It's basic survival. So we have the body type 1, the BMI, and the BMR. Those are the 3 body type standards that mainstream science and medical doctors use to judge your body by, everyone's body by. Mm-hmm. And so long as you are within your safe BMI weight range, you are a body type 1. And so long as you are eating no more than your daily basal metabolic rate calories, you will stay a body type 1 and within your safe BMI weight range. Now, why are those not accurate? So the body type 1, again, any part of the human body can be underdeveloped, and that is a genetic fact. And so you can have underdeveloped muscle and or muscle mass, yada, yada, any part of the human body. 2, if we think about the back and the vertebrae, each vertebra houses a specific set of muscles. If any of those muscles are underdeveloped in any way, that will directly affect your posture. And it is also a fact that if any of those muscles are underdeveloped, and in place of that is skinny fat, again, skinny fat being cellulite, thin fat, loose skin, saggy skin, crepey skin, or normal weight obesity, that science recognizes that 1 pound of muscle mass burns 6 calories. 1 pound of fat, skinny fat, only burns 2 to 3 calories. So if you have skinny fat on your body where there should be muscle, your body's burning less calories daily. So then your BMR is also not accurate.
Interesting.
So those 3 standards are what doctors use daily to judge everyone, yet they are not accurate. And no one wants to hear otherwise, because science has a tendency to find itself in a rut and stick with things because they don't want to change.
Yeah.
It's hard to change, which is why we developed the 4 body types. So taking into account all of that, the 4 body types breaks things down in terms of the vertebrae in your back. So again, as already mentioned, every vertebra houses a specific set of muscles. And if you are lacking development with any of those muscles, it will directly affect your posture, your BMR, and metabolism. So a body type 1 is just a body type 1. You have 0 underdeveloped vertebrae. A body type 2, you have 1 to 8 underdeveloped vertebrae. A body type 3, you have 9 to 17, and the body type 4, you have 18 to 26. There are technically 33 vertebrae. However, relative to the bones and those vertebrae, there are really 26. There are 7 cervical, 12 thoracic, 5 lumbar, 1 sacrum, and 1 coccyx. So we break it down into the number of vertebrae by type 1, 2, 3, and 4. Is that making sense?
Yeah, it does. And well, go ahead. Yeah, continue, because I'm kind of like, this is interesting.
So, and we don't claim that that is necessarily the concrete breakdown of body types. We had to start somewhere, and that seemed like a logical breakdown because of the number of vertebrae, and that just seemed like a good place to start. So, yeah. Now, in terms of our scientific body type quiz, which you can take up on our website at fellow1.com, excuse me. We currently are now pushing 500 or so quizzes from real people. So we have data, the only body type science data in the world, anywhere, to show that these are real. Here are actual people, and we have broken it down again in the body type 1, 2, 3, and 4. And one of the things that we have found very interesting with that data is one of the body types that is regularly pushed out there are the hormone body types. And we fully agree that hormones can directly affect your body. However, the stance of anyone pushing the hormone body types is your body type shape is the way that it is because of hormones. Yet we have, again, hundreds of quizzes now, and many of those quizzes are people who are body type 2, 3, or 4 who have never been diagnosed with any hormone imbalance, are not dealing with a hormone imbalance, have never been diagnosed with any structural issues, yet they are body type 2, 3, or 4. If the hormone body types were true, then that would mean that anyone with a body type 2, 3, or 4 would be diagnosed with a hormone imbalance by their doctor.
Yeah.
And that is not true. There are plenty of body types out there, body type 2, 3, or 4, who have not been diagnosed, who, as far as they are aware and their doctor knows, they have no issues with their hormones, yet they are not a body type 1. So that's just one more way where the hormone body types are also not accurate. They aren't really scientific. Again, we're not arguing that hormones don't have an effect on the body. They most certainly do, and they can affect weight loss and weight gain, etc. But in terms of the shape of your body, hormones do not physically affect the shape of your body in the way that the hormone body type folks claim. So is that making sense?
Yeah. Because obviously I get your point. It's completely relevant. But as far as it's more like a structural thing, like the structural approach that you're talking about, right? And the thing that I find kind of captivating about it all is like, I never ever thought to ever think about how the vertebrae and how those, well, not atrophied muscle, but weakened muscles obviously play into a weak structure, right?
Right. And that's actually an excellent term. So in terms of muscles and being either atrophied or muscles breaking down or dissolving or in some way lacking to be, there is no science that backs up. So if you lose weight, especially if you're a young person, if you lose weight, there's no science that shows that in the process of losing weight safely, that your body breaks down muscle in the process of losing weight. If you have gotten to a point where your body is breaking down muscle so that you can live, then you are starving your body. And that is not safe weight loss. So there is no evidence that shows that when you lose weight, that your body eats muscle. So when you lose that weight, if you have done it safely, right, then if you are lacking muscle mass by the time that you have lost that weight, that muscle wasn't there to begin with. So up on the website, we just had a user who used the Advanced Scientific Weight Loss Diary, user 1170. She started right at the edge of her safe BMI weight range. And over a period of 70 days, she lost 19 pounds. And one of the things that she said at the very end was, it seems like in my process of losing weight that I must have lost muscle mass. And when I told her the same thing, that there is no science that backs that up, she went out and looked and tried to find science to back that up, because she really believed that, that upon losing weight that she had just lost muscle mass in that actual process, but she couldn't find any evidence of it either. And we always encourage folks, please, if you have evidence of that, any scientific studies, any scientific evidence whatsoever, please go to the website and let us know, because we're always interested in the latest science that helps prove things. But right now, there is no evidence that shows that. The only reason that you would be lacking muscle mass, especially at a young age, if you're under 40, once you lose once you lose weight, is because that muscle wasn't there to begin. Now, of course, if you're older, if you're over 40, especially if you're in your 50s or 60s, then the loss of muscle mass is definitely more prevalent, albeit it's not like it goes away quickly. It's a gradual process over time. So even then, if you were to lose weight in your 40s, 50s, or 60s, it's not like, again, the body's just eating muscle mass and, oh my God, I lost all this muscle mass. So is that making sense?
100%. It's just one thing that I do think with a lot of starvation type diets, and not necessarily fasting, because I have fasted and I just kept going to the gym regularly, and I found that I was able to maintain muscle mass. I didn't see a decrease in that whatsoever. I did see my body fat go down, but my muscle mass was there. But the one thing that I would say that's kind of interesting is that when certain people think that they're going catabolic, they're not. Like, a lot of bodybuilders have a big fear of, like, I'm going catabolic, man. It's like, not necessarily, right? Your muscle's not just starting to eat itself. But are there certain diets that will cause muscle loss if done rapidly? And, like, let's say like a carb only or a vegetarian type diet, will those ever impact like the body going catabolic at all, or no?
It would depend on the calorie deficit daily. So in the short term, science says that a 500 calorie deficit daily is safe in the short term. So 500 calories under BMR. So long as that's happening in the short term, no, there really is no diet. And even fasting is okay. So a lot of our scientific weight loss diary participants do intermittent fasting, which can be a safe process so long as you're getting enough calories daily. But it really boils down to, am I not getting enough calories and giving my body the resources that it needs daily? And if I'm not, then your body has no choice but to start burning the resources that it already has. And once it's burning through its fat, it will start to burn muscle. And again, if you've gotten there, if you're to a place where you have started to burn muscle, then you are not losing weight safely.
100%. And that's, but like you said before too, the body's able to recognize all these different things, and usually that process is gradual. It's kind of like people that pick up the weights for the first time. They're like, oh man, I don't want to get too big. I'm like, you're not.
Exactly. And so, and to your point about weightlifting, it is an excellent exercise. We highly recommend it. But that being said, especially if you were under 40, you should have no reason to go and lift weights if you are, as mainstream science and medical doctors say, you're already a body type 1 once you're within safe BMI. You should have no reason to have to go and lift weights to look like the standard scientific human body anatomy book body type 1 once you're within safe BMI, because you already look like that according to them.
Yeah.
So lifting weights, again, we think is a great exercise, and there are many reasons why. But according to science, you shouldn't have to. If you're already within your safe BMI weight range, you're already a body type 1, and there should be no need to lift weights. Yet we both know that there are plenty of people out there, and we have the evidence up on our site, strong evidence, that there are plenty of people who are body type 2, 3, or 4, and they could greatly benefit from lifting weights, and getting into the gym and doing that properly is the key. And one of the ways that we say that doing that properly is actually through yoga. Yoga is an excellent, just all around, and if it's used with weightlifting, it's really the best exercise. And if you can translate doing yoga and weightlifting to standing up and walking, what the real goal is the real weight that is always pushing down on the human body is gravity.
Yes.
One thing, right, that your body is always working against, and it's how it helps maintain muscle and muscle mass. And this is seen with any astronaut who goes into space, and they have to work extra hard up there to do their cardio and weightlifting to not lose too much muscle and muscle mass and bone mass, etc. Because without the gravity here on Earth, the human body begins to wither away.
Yeah.
So gravity is really what we're working against. We are currently working on some cutting edge exercises that use gravity. They're really in the experimental phase, so I can't go into them too much, but we are working on exercises that use gravity. But in the meantime, using yoga and finding a way to use yoga and weightlifting and then translate that to standing up and walking and working on your actual posture as you're walking. Mm-hmm. That's really the key to maintaining muscle and muscle mass over time. Because one of the downsides of doing weightlifting in general is anyone who knows or has done weightlifting thoroughly and put on a lot of muscle knows that as soon as you stop weightlifting, what happens?
Over time, it may decrease in size a little bit. Yeah.
Right. You actually lose muscle over time because as you stop the actual repetition exercise, your body loses that muscle. Whereas if you can figure out how to do that and put on muscle relative to gravity so that your body's always working against that gravity, it will maintain that muscle because it's working against gravity. So that's what we are working on right now, is exercises that actually use gravity. And again, they're in the experimental state. Please check back to our website regularly because we are working on those, and we'll get them up as soon as possible. It's just a slow process, unfortunately.
No worries. And the one question I did have too, because now that we're talking about exercises, because you mentioned how, certain muscles at the back basically weren't firing up, right, according to each vertebrae. So what are there specific exercises that you would recommend that would really help people in developing and basically if I go from a type 4 body type to a type 1 by incorporating more, I don't know, kinetic chain exercise, would that positively influence the result and the body type that I could develop? Or are there any other recommendations that you have as far as workouts go?
It's always tricky because it would be relative to the vertebrae in your back that are underdeveloped. So what we would recommend first is going to our site and taking the scientific body type quiz so that you can identify. And really, we understand that really the best way to identify underdeveloped vertebrae would be with an MRI machine, but unfortunately that's easier said than done.
It's kind of pricey.
Is the next best thing. But once you identify that, then it's really difficult to say that there's a certain set of exercises or the like that would work for everybody, because if you're somebody who's a body type 2, 3, or 4 and you have your own set of vertebrae that are underdeveloped, then you're going to require a different set of exercises than somebody else. So if you've got thoracic vertebrae that are developed, and there will be a certain set of exercises relative to those. Whereas if someone had lumbar, there will be a certain set for those. So your question is an excellent question. It's one that we get a lot. Fortunately, there is no standardized answer to that because everyone is different. Every body is different. What I would say to that is, one, it is vital to build muscle properly and in the right way. So if you have access to a trainer, if you have a local gym where you can go down and speak with one of the experts and get a set of exercises that would help with these certain vertebrae, that's where I would start. Because one of the downsides of, if you have a specific set of vertebrae that are underdeveloped, and then you have others that are fully developed, and you go down and you just do a regular standard weightlifting routine, what's likely going to happen is you're going to put on weight without much issue relative to the muscles that are already developed. But if you have vertebrae that are underdeveloped and there's skinny fat in place of that, it's a lot harder to build muscle and muscle mass where you have skinny fat than it is where you already have muscle. And so, is that making sense?
Yeah. No, 100%, because it's kind of like it's almost like developing specific areas just to counter that, like, well, I guess what existed in the past. And I guess the only way to really know that is to have a good kind of test or something that's going to reveal these things to us. Because I mean, the thing is, as a trainer, the first thing I could tell you, man, is a lot of people lie to themselves. Like, no, man, my kinetic chain is on point, man. It's like my hamstrings are fine. It's like, and you do a couple of tests and they're like, bro, you are tight everywhere. Your hip mobility sucks, and we got to work on your back. And it's like, well, I want to do the sexy workout. So I'm like, well, you can't. You got to work on this first.
Yeah. And that's it, is you really need somebody who knows what they're talking about when it comes to properly building muscles and muscle mass. And so, and I realize that not everyone has the resources, the funds to access an expert. But again, if you can at least start with our body type quiz, then you can literally be standing there in the gym on your phone with your quiz in hand and show the expert and say, look, here are my images, here's my back, here are the vertebrae that are actually underdeveloped. I need specific exercises that will help build these muscles. What can you help me with? And get help from an expert, because I don't claim to be an exercise expert like you, but this is why shows like this are super helpful. Somebody can come and take our quiz, and then they can come to you and they can say, hey, CJ, what exercises would you recommend? I've got an underdeveloped lumbar 1 through 5. What would you recommend? And then you can offer it.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, and just kind of be like, well, strengthen your rectus spinae, obviously your glutes, all that stuff needs to be firing up properly. And I mean, for most people, it's almost like the posterior chain is generally pretty weak, just because, nobody sees those muscles. The mirror muscles is what everybody concentrates on. But then you got guys, their shoulders rolled in, chest tight. It's like, all right,
that's
let's
it.
start working on it.
Is if you're not working the whole body in a proper way, then you're going to get those unbalances. When I was in college, my college roommate was he was a hardcore weightlifter dude, but he was this short dude who was likely lacking muscle mass, probably from his lower thoracic down to his sacrum.
Yeah,
and he was putting on so much muscle mass in other areas of his body that he actually turned into more of a ball of a human being, a ball of muscle. And he dreamed of looking like a Brad Pitt type, right? Who's all the muscles are fully, but he wasn't, because he wasn't focusing on lifting weights properly. And so that really is vital. And I'm sorry that I can't offer more of a standardized approach with things, but it sounds like you are thoroughly knowledgeable in how to go about building the muscles properly across the entire body. Now it's just, if folks go and take our quiz, then they come back to you. It sounds like that would be a nice combination to help them really find a balance with their body in terms of muscle mass. So
100%. Yeah, I mean, well, developing muscle is pretty easy, but it's the foundational things that most people just kind of skip over. And I'm not gonna lie, like when I started the gym too, I didn't care about, stability. I'm like, who cares about stability? Let's rip these rotator cuffs up, which is another popular thing that's happening, right? Where you see it all the time, shoulder impingement issues, rotator cuff issues, ankle mobility sucks, what's depressed arches, all that kind of stuff ties into obviously, people's body structure, right? And now that we're on the subject of that, how important would you say that, getting your vertebrae kind of where they need to be, how would that affect feet? Because ankles is another thing that I've been looking into like lately as well for myself, just because like, I want to grow old gracefully. So I've been looking at like foot health and how that impacts everything that we do. And there's a guy called the Barefoot Guy, I think his name is, where he just does everything barefoot. And he talks about the importance of letting your feet be free and making sure that your toes are spread out properly, because if not, it'll lead to a whole bunch of other things. So how would, strengthening the back really impact feet and legs and just overall, I guess, just your overall mechanical functions?
So what I say is walking right. So in terms of the lower part of the body, it's most likely connected to the coccyx vertebrae and all of the muscle that are relative all the way down to the feet. So when I go out, because my body was lacking so much muscle and pretty much everywhere, including the coccyx, it has taken me years to build all of those muscles all the way down to my feet. And there's all of the muscles in the feet, the toes, everywhere. Mm-hmm. So it has been a process of learning how to walk right, and that's basically I call it sort of a meditative walk. So I'm a big fan of hiking, and when I go out hiking, I do my best to stay focused on walking right. So when I start walking, I'll get my back and everything into the right posture, and then I'll feel it out. And then as I'm walking, I am just conscious of every step and making sure that every step is right, quote unquote.
Yeah.
And I can feel that in all of the muscles down through my legs. I can feel it in my toe. I can feel it everywhere. And it took a while to get to know my legs and my feet that well. But once I did, I am well aware now when I'm not walking right and when I am walking right. And I will also translate that to what I call isometric resistance exercise, where even lying down, I can build muscle simply by focusing on all of the muscles in my legs and holding them. Mm-hmm. And then it's really no different than weightlifting, where I will hold all of those muscles as long as I can, and then keep holding them until they burn to a point where the following day, all those muscles will ache just as if I had been weightlifting. So if I'm doing walking, I am focusing on walking right, which is no easy task, especially when I still don't have, I have a lot more muscle nowadays, but I still don't have all of it. So walking right is a relative term because it's hard to truly walk right when you don't have all of the muscle yet, but you walk as right as you can relative to all the muscle that you have. And then two, you can help further build that with isometrics. And I just do it lying down, and I guess I do it standing up as well. And I'll also use weights just to mimic gravity to help add more weight. And then of course yoga is a big deal as well. I have my own sort of quasi yoga type routine that I do, but it's a standing up. I don't know how else to really explain it other than that, but am I making any sense, or am I just rambling?
No, 100%. It's kind of, well, you're completely right, because I mean, for myself, like I got flat feet. I've had flat feet since I was a kid, and I looked into that whole science about how when you wear narrow shoes, and I love Nike shoes, like I love Nike shoes, but they have a very narrow toe box, which is not healthy and not good for a guy with fat feet like myself. Right. And what that causes depressed arches. So for myself, in the same vein as you, man, like I got to be conscious about the way I walk, because I'm a heel striker. right? So, and it's been causing me like loads of pain when I don't wear my insoles. But I've also been looking, like I told you, about how to find, different ways to, actually better this naturally, not necessarily always rely on the insole, right? And for myself, it's been the same deal where I got to be conscious when I'm walking, right? Like flex your glutes, flex your abs, kind of keep them a little bit more rigid, focus on isometric holds while you're walking. And
Right.
doing that, you alleviate, a lot of that not pressure, but a lot of that impact or that force coming down on your feet, and making sure that that impact is directed toward the balls of my feet, not the heels, which is causing the pain, right? But now
Right.
that you mentioned, obviously getting the coccyx involved, it's almost like, okay, that's interesting, because it's almost like you're right, it is connected. So it's almost like I want to be more conscious about of that when I walk, right? And I find it interesting because, yeah, you're right. The whole body works as one, and you cannot deny one thing and then wonder, hey, why am I in pain somewhere else? Or why am I, mechanically unsound? Like, people that walk with pain or have their heels that are just kind of rolled in, I think it all ties into being conscious. And you're completely right, man. Gravity is what's gonna eventually, cause you to suffer from a whole bunch of different ailments and problems, right? And as
But
far as your, or go ahead, go
no,
ahead.
sorry, but it is the attrition over time from the unbalance in the body that causes joint and ligament and other, wear and tear and eventually damage to the body. And so we like to, as humans, our science is very young.
Hmm.
Yet we are convinced that we know everything about everything. We're the greatest in the universe, and a whole other subject. Hopefully, I come on your show again.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
Is we can talk about things like climate change and how we humans have done a marvelous job of really messing up our entire planet. It's no different with our body. Our science is so young, we know so very little about our human body, all things relative, that we're convinced that aging is just this natural thing that happens that we can't do anything about. Yet there are these blue zones across the planet
Yeah.
where folks live to into their hundreds healthy, and not they aren't popping a bunch of allopathic pills and in pain
No.
from their 70s on, right? They are living normal healthy lives with a healthy diet and healthy exercise and healthy lifestyle into their hundreds.
Yeah.
And it's rare because most humans just abuse their body like no other. They
Hmm.
abuse it, and from that abuse comes attrition and wear and tear and breakdown. And as you said, ungraceful aging. Like you, I want to age gracefully, but most people age ungracefully because they abuse their body and they just aren't taking care of it well. And instead of taking care of it well, they have essentially surrendered their health to their doctors. And I no disrespect to doctors. We need them. We wouldn't have gotten through this COVID situation without doctors. But at the same time, in my experience, doctors are arrogant and they think that they know everything about everything, and they don't. And our science doesn't. And it's time that we wake up and realize that we don't know everything about everything, that our science is young and we're still learning, and that aging is a disease. And science is beginning to show this, that aging is a disease. And it's not something that just happens to the human body that we can't do anything about. It is a disease. And there are foods that we can eat that will help undamage our DNA. But really, is what's happening over time is because we are abusing our body, we're damaging our DNA. And as our DNA replicates over time, it gets less and less efficient because of the damage that we're doing to our body from the diet, exercise, and lifestyle that we aren't doing well.
Yeah.
So as time passes, we age, and we can change that, and we can age better, and we can even extend our life if we learn a better diet, exercise, and lifestyle. But that means that each person has to take their own health into their own hands and stop
Yes.
surrendering it to doctors and scientists who, again, they're doing really good work, but they don't know everything about everything. And it's time that we accept that it's our body, that we need to treat it better, and then if we can learn the right diet, exercise, and lifestyle, it will help us age much more gracefully over time. And if you can understand what your scientific body type is, understand what your imbalances are, then you can better understand the best diet, exercise, and lifestyle for your specific body type. And the final thing that I'll say on that is we don't necessarily push a specific diet or exercise. Everyone is different. Some diets and exercises work better for some than others, and we are totally on board with that. So if you go and look at our scientific weight loss program, you'll see that we have a full list of diets, from an omnivore diet all the way down to a vegetarian, carnivore, keto, paleo, etc. All those diets are up on our site, along with a whole range of different cardio and resistance exercises. So we're not necessarily pushing a specific diet or exercise. We're simply pushing healthy. And healthy means that you are eating whole foods. You are not eating processed, refined, and junk foods like what most Americans are eating. Right? So it's food quality matters. A calorie is most certainly not a calorie. And science has proven that now without a shadow of a doubt, that there are some foods that are better for you. A McDonald's French fry is not the same as a piece of broccoli. It may taste better, but it is most certainly not as healthy. Now, that being said, I'll give this challenge to anyone. I challenge anyone to try a serving of McDonald's French fries with ketchup and a serving of salted roasted sunflower seeds with ketchup, and tell me that the sunflower seeds with ketchup are not infinitely better than the French fries. They taste nearly identical, if not identical, and the sunflower seeds in every way are better for you. So there's just a little challenge that I will throw out there. But what you eat matters. The quality of the food that you eat matters. And aging is most certainly not something that is just inevitable. We can do better with it.
No, 100%. And I mean, to your point about medicine, like allopathic medicine, I think, it does have its place. And for a lot of acute things, it's excellent. But as far as prevention and actually, curing stuff, I see it as a money grab at times, But that being said, I have talked to a lot of doctors, and I've had a bunch on the show who've been telling me that, like, you know what, we're kind of looking at things differently because we're trying to fix the system. Because even they're saying, like, hey, I'm a PhD, I'm a newer doctor, I've only been at this for about 5-10 years now. But I can definitely tell that, the best course of action isn't probably giving this guy 5 different sets of drugs to take. And, I was talking to Dr. Antun, and he actually made the fast mimicking diet, right? It's very interesting. It still is able to give everybody the positive effects of autophagy while still having them eat, right? So you're cleaning up all your cells, you're getting rid of all that waste, and you're still giving them something to eat that's nutritious and keeps the brain, like firing on all cylinders. And to me, I kind of feel like we're going to see a revolution, because a lot of doctors, and that's the thing, is that I don't blame them. It's a system that they were kind of set up in. However, a lot of them are kind of like, hey, man, we could do something different here. And a lot of people are kind of looking at it from the same point of view that you have. Like, I want to age gracefully. I want to, do something positive for the community. And I don't necessarily want to get down with all these drugs.
That's it. So what we don't understand right now in terms of science is how all those drugs and how our diet affects our liver, because our liver is directly tied to the health of our skin and how well we age. And so because we pop allopathic drugs like it's candy, and we drink alcohol, and I think that the old standard was 2 glasses a day per man and 1 for a woman, has now been brought to 1 for a man and half and now they're even saying that alcohol in general, like the most recent study said that two beers age the brain 10 years in a short period of time. And so what that really means, I don't know, because if 2 beers ages the brain 10 years, and most people would already be dead. So we know that's not a very accurate, but how does that translate? And how much does alcohol really affect the liver? And how much does so if you look at things from a more Eastern medicine point of view, the liver ties in directly to the skin, the eyes, and as your liver health fails, your eyesight starts to fail and your skin begins to fail, and you start to get more wrinkles. And these are all obvious signs of quote unquote aging.
Mm-hmm.
Yet likely it's not aging. It's that you've abused the hell out of your liver and it's finally said, you know what, I give up. And it's basically just starting to falter, and it can't replicate its cells like it could when it was younger. And it's just it's just essentially expediting the breakdown of cells, and which is what really causes aging. So I think that we need to start looking at things like Eastern medicine more seriously, and giving it more credence than we do, because there was a recent study in South Korea that actually claims that it proved that the meridians are real, and I fully believe that all that's real anyways. But because our science can't prove it yet, most Western folk poo-poo it. But as our science grows and we get the actual technology to start to prove things like meridians and chakras and all these things that are more gray area in terms of science anyways, we'll begin to understand our body better, and we'll extend our lives. Now, the final thing that I'll say on that is that will need to be done in a careful way, because okay, so I'll get into a little bit of politics here. Like, do we really want Donald Trump to live any longer than absolutely? We don't want folks like that to live any longer than necessary, because they don't offer any value to the world. And so we have to be careful about how we go about bringing forward this science and who it actually applies to. And that's going to get me into all kinds of trouble, because who am I to say who can and can't? But really, as a scientist, that's what I'm doing, is I'm understanding the human body, and I'm bringing forward the actual knowledge, and I'm trying to say, look, this is how we age better. This is how we live our lives better. And to those folks who are listening and who are actually interested in it, they're the ones who will live longer, better lives, because they're actually utilizing the knowledge that science is bringing forward. This is about knowledge. It's not about anything else than the knowledge, about true knowledge, about facts and evidence, and having a healthy respect for knowledge and facts and evidence and truth, and not just making up lies and saying whatever you want so that you can make money. So that's the world that we're moving away from. In the allopathic world, the mainstream science and medical doctor world got lost in that for far too long. And as you said earlier, it was really all about making money. And you saw that with the opium, the opioid epidemic, right, and the obesity epidemic, and all these things are simply because we put profit over health. And as we get back to understanding that, I'm not knocking money. It has its place in the world. I can't pay my bills and do the things that I want in my life without money. But I also can't live my life well if I'm not healthy. So we've got to find a balance and moderation in those things. And we've got to pull ourselves out of this mire that we find ourselves in terms of social media and the lies and the disinformation and misinformation that are being spread, and hopefully find a sustainable future. Because right now I'm a bit older than you and a lot of your listeners, but I still greatly care about the future, and I'd like to live as long as possible on a planet that is actually livable. So anyways,
No, 100%, man. 100% agree with you. And that's the thing, is that I honestly feel that, I mean, if we treated aging almost like a disease that's preventable, but we took all the necessary steps, then I think society as a whole would be healthier, and there's no denying that it would be. I'm saying this hypothetically, but it's like, of course, of course, we all would probably we would profit from it in a non-profitable way, as far as like fiat currency is concerned. But it just, I feel that a lot of people would benefit, man, from not being stressed, not aging quickly, not having to deal with all these, issues at a young age. It's like, heart attacks, diabetes, all these things. I mean, I'm not going to say they're preventable, but
and suicide has become a big problem with young people. because of the dire state of the world and because of the dire state of social media. And in general, it's one of the, the great worries right now is the emotional
mental health, yeah,
states of young people, and of course the physical and spiritual states as well. But I fully agree with you. If we can find a healthier state of being in terms of our physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual states, we would all be happier and the world would be a much better place.
100%, man. That was a beautiful way to end the podcast. Marc, where can they find you? Tell us about your website. Tell us any of your social media links.
Yes. So you can find us up on fellow1.com. And we are up on social media, pretty much all the main social media, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok. I'm sure that there are a few others that I am leaving out, but we're up there. It's mostly under the 4 body types. And we also have what's called Ask Gnosis. So think of Ask Gnosis in terms of Siri or Alexa, where you can go and you can ask questions. It's a part of our advanced scientific weight loss diary, but you can also buy single credits up on the website at fellow1.com, where you can also access the scientific body type quiz. Again, the scientific weight loss program diary. We have the basic diary, which is a year-long subscription, and then we have the advanced diary, which is a 90-day. And there are current users up on the site that you can go and see. And then as well, I also have a book that currently can only be purchased up on the website. I am working on getting it published, but the name of the book is a bit risque. It's called Overprivileged White Guy. It's my story. And just a quick overview on that. The reason that I named it that was because I was born in a body type 4, and my story is riddled with hardship, like everyone else's story. Yeah. But I could not imagine being in a body type 4 and not being a white dude in this country, and how hard it would have been if I hadn't been white. And I didn't really know that until I left my, I left home when I was 18 and I got out into the world. I had no idea how much privilege I had as a white man. And I'm not knocking white people, and I'm not knocking the white race. I'm not any of that. I'm simply being honest about what I am well aware of in this country. And it's one of the main reasons why I titled it that, was because I'm aware of who I am and how that affected my life and how it affects so many other people's lives. And so it's a running theme in the book, but the book is really about my process of figuring out my body type, the body type science, the 4 body types, etc., and how all that came to be. And it's actually in novel format, so it's not a boring science-based book. It's actually in novel format. So anyways, there's that up on the site, and I think that covers it.
Yeah. All right, perfect. Well, Marc, it was an absolute pleasure talking to you. Learned a lot today, and I can't wait to talk to you again, man.
Thank you for having me, CJ. Have a wonderful day.
Hey, talk to you guys. Talk to all you guys later. Stay safe and take care.